Hi, I'm Paul from CRM Strategy, and in this video I'm going to walk you through 5 use cases for SugarMarket. SugarMarket is a companion marketing automation product that integrates deeply with Sugar CRM. In these walkthroughs we'll look at how it all connects to provide one seamless communications platform. So let's look at our first example. In this scenario we have a lead coming from a third-party form on the web. Via the form we know this lead, Paul Pearson, is interested in having an introductory session. Using SugarMarket, we will send an automatic campaign to Paul welcoming him to the training plan. Not only that, but it will change the content of the email he gets to reflect the city he comes from. So let's just jump into it. This is the Sugar CRM lead screen, and in it we can see his interest is in the introductory aspect of the service. Over here in SugarMarket we have a feature called a listener. Here it's polling the CRM to see if anyone has registered an interest in an introduction. That's what we're checking for right there. If it has, it will send that person to the corresponding nurture campaign, which is here. And we can already see that Paul has been detected as being interested in an introductory service and has been directed to that nurture campaign. Over on the nurture campaign screen, this is the campaign that will be sent to Paul. In SugarMarket, nurture campaigns are controlled through graphical flowcharts just like this one. Let's walk through the flow a little bit. This green icon basically represents the introduction to the campaign itself, however we get to it. In this case, it's been triggered by that interest in the introductory session. The first thing that campaign will do is send the introductory email out. And then we've got a couple of housekeeping activities that just make for better list building. So directly following on from that email, we'll check to see whether that email was opened. If the email was opened, we'll just put that lead or contact into a target list called engaged leads or targets. If it wasn't, we'll wait a couple of days and then we'll resend that email, perhaps with a slight variation, and then just check again to see whether it was opened. If it was opened, we put them back into that same list. If not, we put them into a new list called disengaged. This is just part of a standard practice that we would go through in terms of keeping lists clean, so that when we get to send out mails to people after we've already met them, we know that we're increasingly optimizing our chances for opens and better communication. So now that we've covered the flow, let's look at the email itself. So I'm just going to click in here, open up the email. So what we're looking at here is a generic version of this email if we don't know the city that they come from. So for example, if they didn't fill out their city on the form. In Market, we can dynamically change the content of the campaign based on the data we have on the contact. So in this case, we are using City as an example. So in the email builder, I've set up different content for Sydney and for Melbourne. Clicking on the preview icon, I can have a look at what that would be. So here I'm going to select what the view would be if you came from Melbourne, and you can see here we've got an image of a cup of coffee and the words welcome to your next course in Melbourne, and the rest of the email is pretty much the same. If we detected that the contact came from Sydney, they'd get a slightly different image. So here again, change the text, change the graphics, but the balance of the email remains the same. Text and graphics are just two components. We can change other elements such as the buttons, links, HTML content, and more. So in summary, using this, we can guarantee that our leads not only get the right communication based on their interests, but they also get highly personalized emails as well. Okay, so let's now look at our next use case. So in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to follow the process of a form being filled out that we've created in SugarMarket. That form, once it's been completed by a lead or a contact, is going to add that person to a list. It's then going to trigger a nurture dynamically. And then in the nurture itself, what we'll do is a number of things such as check for link clicks and then set some notifications for users. So in the previous example, we were looking at a third-party form, but now let's take control of the form ourselves using the tool. So we're looking at the moment at the form builder screen, which is basically where we construct the elements of the form, and we also map components of this back into the CRM. So for example, first name, email, all of those kind of things can be captured and sent directly into the CRM system. Moving along a little bit, we've got a styling screen where we can basically control the look and the feel of the form itself. And then once we're happy with the aesthetic of it, we go into the actions component. So this is what happens when the form is completed. So at the moment, we can see that there are a few things that are going to happen once the form is successfully completed. The first thing that will happen is the recipient, or sorry, the person who's filling out the form will be redirected to a thank you page, which is fairly standard practice. But then where it becomes very interesting is we start to do things off the back of that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to alert users. So in this case, I'm one of the users who would get alerted if this form was completed. And then directly on completion of the form, we'll add that person to a nurture campaign. In this case, the campaign is called Form Nurture. So let's flick over to that nurture campaign and have a look at what's happening inside it. Click on my nurture campaigns, click on Form Nurture. So this one looks a little bit more complicated than the last one, but really it's not so much. The first part of the nurture is the standard check for opens and resends. So in this case, we've got another check that we're running here. And within SugarMarket, we have a number of ways that we can either check into the form content, we can check into the CRM, or we can check web activities. So in this scenario, what we're doing is once we've sent them the welcome email from the form itself, we're just going to check for a click on the email itself. So there would be a special sign up link or some call to action that we would build into the body of the email, and we build this test condition into the nurture campaign to check whether they have clicked on that link. If they haven't clicked on that link, no problem, we just end the nurture campaign there. However, if they do click on that call to action, what we do, we assign a task for one of our team members to give this person a phone call, and then directly after that we put this person into a separate nurture campaign, simply because they have engaged so actively with the communication. The next use case I'd like to talk about is the ability for SugarMarket to take actions based on a known level of interest from a lead or a contact. Market gauges this interest by profiling web activity, form fills, and email engagement. It even has the capacity to reach directly into the CRM and evaluate data it finds there about a person and add that to the scoring profile. So it does all this via something called a contact scoring profile, which is what we're looking at on the screen right now. So let's have a look through that and just talk to the various pieces of information that it can capture, the decisions it can make, and the automations that it can generate based on what it knows about the level of interest somebody has. The first thing I'd like to mention about a scoring profile is that it is time-based. So basically what that gives us is the capacity to measure someone's interest within a fixed period of time. So a score doesn't last forever. After a certain time period, maybe a couple of weeks or 3 months or a quarter, whatever it might be, we can instruct the system to start decreasing the score. It gives us a dynamic view in a real way of actual interest, not just historical interest. So scrolling down the screen a little bit, let's talk about how the system goes about applying scores to people. The first thing that we want to look at is the lead stage thresholds. These can be anything that we like. They don't have to be called cold, warm, or hot. They're user defined, and they reflect the thresholds that we want to characterize somebody as falling into once they've passed a given score. So for example, in this scenario, anyone between 1 and 50 is a cold lead, anyone between 51 and 100 is warm, and upwards to hot. These categories could be engaged, disengaged, or any language that is appropriate. How do we get to the scoring though? The way that we do that is via these tabs across the screen. So if I click into web activity, for example, I can see here that I am scoring individual pages on my website, and depending on the page itself, I can give it a different score. So there might be higher or lower value pages in the site, and I can reflect that in the scoring value I give them. So typically if there was a finance page or a compare products page, I might give that a higher score, whereas an about us might get a slightly lower score. Similarly, we can score email campaigns. In this case, I am scoring a click higher than an open, and we can be quite specific right down to the campaign and the link itself. Going further across the screen, we can score form fills, events, and so forth. On the right hand side, we're scoring information that we know about a lead or a contact from the CRM directly. So in this particular case, if a lead or a contact has registered interest in premium products, or in fact if a user has logged a premium product interest against a lead or a contact, then that person is going to get a score of 50. As these scores get added up, they ultimately get put into the relevant bucket. The next thing that we can do though is, once the system knows that somebody is falling into a warm category or a hot category, we can then take actions as well. So if I stepped into actions around the warm category, once somebody is deemed to be a warm lead, the first thing that we'll do is we'll add them to the distribution list called warm leads. The second thing that we'll do is we'll create an opportunity in the CRM itself with their lead attached. And the final thing we'll do is we'll send them to a nurture campaign. So as you can imagine, this combination of scoring and profiling contacts allows you to send the right message to a person at the right time through their customer journey. So far we've spoken a lot about automation. It's important to point out though that the system is quite happy to support manual triggering of campaigns as well. So just in the same way that the system is aware of values being set and automatically triggering actions based on that, we can get the marketing system to quietly wait for a user to set a value. So in this scenario again, where we've got the lead called Paul Pearson, a user in the CRM can click the send welcome email at any point. So perhaps they've had a conversation and they think it's the right time to send that email. They'll click the button like that, hit the save button, and now, as we saw previously, a listener inside of the marketing automation system is going to be waiting for that value to be set. Once it detects that that value has been set, it will trigger that email campaign. So let's pop over to Sugar Market and have a look at the campaign that would be triggered from that. So in this case, we're going to add one check criteria based on something that we know about the lead, again from the CRM. So you might remember that this lead, Paul Pearson, had registered interest in the premium product. Now, and it might be that we want to send a different email to him based on that fact. So the first thing that we can do is we can use this field checker tool in the nurture campaign itself to understand whether or not Paul has indicated that he's interested in that premium product. So I'll just open the configuration so you can see what that looks like. We are checking for the premium product interest is 1, meaning that that value has been set, and if so, we will send him, or we'll send that lead this email, we'll add them to the premium list, and then we'll end the nurture. If we don't detect that, in other words, if that person hasn't registered interest in the premium product or a user has set that value, then they get an alternate email and then the nurture ends. Simple as that. So this is another branch that we can add, another layer of personalization that we can add for the recipient of these emails, meaning that the messaging that they get is more relevant and more likely to lead to the actions that we want them to take. For this last use case, I'd like to talk about a very powerful component of the system, which is the ability to send dynamic reports from the CRM directly into the marketing system. So for example, we may have a requirement to send a welcome email to every new lead that we come across. Now, it may be that we've come across that lead from them filling out a web form, an inquiry, or perhaps even somebody creating that lead directly in the CRM. Doesn't matter how we get them. So what we would do is, the first thing is we would build a report in the CRM, which would give us a list of every new lead that we've come across. Now that could be on a daily basis or a monthly basis, however it is that we want to build that report. Then over in the marketing side, we build a hook into the CRM that constantly reads that report. So for example, this is now talking to that report. I can preview that. That's going to give me the same list of people that the report generated on the CRM side. Importantly, a little bit down the screen, I will just click the auto update button, and that's going to dynamically update all of the contacts that match that report criteria. Finally, let's talk about the nurture campaign that we would use to send that welcome email. So clicking into the nurture campaign itself, this little checkbox disallows the same person from receiving the same nurture campaign twice. So the same person is never going to get the same message 2 times in a row, which is what we want. I'm going to move through the build process, which is the standard onboarding email campaign that we've looked at previously. And then in the recipients tab, I'm going to make sure that the list that our campaign is sending to is this dynamic list that we're generating from the CRM. Now by clicking on this auto refresh button, or I can get this nurture campaign to check hourly for any updates, and if it detects a new person has been added, it will then send them that email campaign and follow the flowchart rules as we've seen before. So as you can see, if you can build a list in the CRM, you can send it dynamically into the marketing system, and then you can, if you like, on the hour update that nurture campaign to send that email communication out to any new people that we've met that will match that report criteria, which is a very, very powerful way of pushing the right information again to the right people at the right time. So I hope this information has been helpful. Please reach out if you have any questions. Of course, we'd be more than happy to walk you through a detailed demonstration of the system and answer any specific questions that you might have. Thank you very much for watching.